measures, and that has resulted and that has shown a lot of impact, lot of positive impact on Indian economy. Uh, the corporate tax has been slashed by half to 15%. Now it is one of the lowest in the world. The withdrawal of dividend distribution tax has been mainly on the request from Japan. As a result, February numbers demonstrated resilience of Indian economy as IIP and PMI, they both went up. Capital markets were in bull run and food inflation had eased. India has also strode on ease of doing business from 142nd rank in 2014 to 63rd rank in 2019. India has moved up to 52nd position in Global Innovation Index in 2019. However, COVID-19 is providing the background to change the game as never before and to reboot the economy. No crisis comes without opportunities, and who knows this better than Japan? India is one of the largest consumer electronics markets and one of the fastest growing smartphone markets in Asia Pacific region. The Indian electronics industry is being driven by macro factors like growing middle class population and rising disposable income. In addition, declining electronics prices and adoption of high-end technology devices is leading to an uptick in consumption of electronic devices. Furthermore, technology transitions such as rollout of 4G and LTE network and Internet of Things are driving the accelerated adoption of electronics products. Initiatives such as Digital India and Smart City projects have raised the demand for IoT in the market. Similarly, the digital banking sector like wallet payment and online banking payment are raising demand for POS and VSAT enabled mobile ATMs, which will further give a fillip to the growing industry. Meghraj, that is Government Cloud Initiative, National Knowledge Network, and Ultra Mega Solar Project give additional boost to this sector. As one of the largest electronics market in the world, Indian electronics industry is anticipated to reach US $400 billion by 2025. The consumer electronics and appliances industry in India is expected to become the fifth largest in the world by 2025. The electronics market is projected to grow at a CAGR of 17% during 2014-2020. Overall production of consumer electronics is expected to reach US $29 billion by 2020. Electronics market in India is projected to reach US $228 billion by 2020 from over US $100 billion in 2016-17. 100% FDI in this sector is allowed under the automatic route in India. Delhi, West Bengal, Telangana, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Gujarat are some of the leading states that provide US $334 million opportunity for 11 projects in this sector. Post COVID-19 outbreak, in order to further the agenda set by the vision of national policy on electronics announced in 2019, 3 schemes have been further announced in April. Which is one of the objectives of today's webinar and which will be explained in detail by my colleague. There is a big fillip given to research and development through several measures such as tax exemption in manufacturing companies up to 150% for expenses incurred on research and development. Several market research reports and industry watchers, they anticipate overall good growth opportunity for this sector due to increasing demand in segments like cybersecurity, smart thermostat, video conferencing, remote banking and finance, working and learning through electronic devices, facial recognition, internet shopping, and various healthcare software and web services. Companies like Zoom, Gain City, Medical App, Inkblot, they are thriving, and companies like Ramco and Dermalog are all set to grab this opportunity. The trend of smart offices and smart homes, where consumer electronics is an important part, is boosting the demand for consumer electronics products. Of the total electronic industry in Japan, consumer electronics is around 48.6% market share. Japan is the brain country behind consumer electronics. However, The rising competition from China, Taiwan, and South Korea has decreased the global and local presence of Japanese companies. The innovation in consumer electronics products and targeting the younger generation is the opportunity for growth. In 2019, the total production value of electronics industry in Japan amounted to around 10.5 trillion Japanese yen, which is down from about 15.33 trillion Japanese yen in 2010. Electronic components and devices such as integrated circuits were the leading product category of the Japanese electronic industry, accounting for the majority of total production value. India and Japan have a lot to complement each other in electronics industry, and their collaboration is likely to create a win-win situation for both by lowering cost, improving standards, and expanding market. The bilateral fora like Indo-Japan Industrial Competitiveness, Electronics Dialogue, and framework like Japan-India Industrial Skilling Mechanism and Japan Industrial Township will further facilitate industry and business of both the countries. Thank you. Arigato gozaimasu.
引き続き、モナカンダール氏によります冒頭の挨拶ハイライトをお伝えいたします。新型コロナウイルス感染症の登場は世界をほぼ停止状態に陥れました。悪戦苦闘している産業もあれば、逆に恩恵を受けた産業もあります。ゆえに今回のウェビナーにこのテーマを選びました。日本を含む先進国はサプライチェーンの多様化に注目しており、インドはその最良の選択肢となっております。インド経済は大規模な経済改革後の2月に確実な回復を示しました。直近25年度のインドの GDP、企業利益成長率、時価総額の成長は確固なものです。ブルームバーグやメディアグループ、JBC などの調査は投資先ランキングでインドを1位に選出しています。インドは最大のエレクトロニクス消費市場の一つであり、アジア太平洋地域の中で最も早く成長しているスマートフォン市場の一つでもあります。インドのエレクトロニクス産業は増加する中級階級人口と可処分所得、減少するエレクトロニクス価格、高機能製品の導入、4G や LTE、ネットワークなどの転換に代表される技術移行、デジタルインディア、スマートシティなどの IoT イニシアチブによっても後押しされています。ウォレットプレイヤーや支払い銀行などのデジタル金融部門もこの成長する産業にさらに刺激を与えています。インドは世界最大のエレクトロニクス市場の一つでもありますが、2025年までに4000億ドルに到達すると予想がされています。また、2025年までには、失礼いたしました。また、2014年から2020年までの年平均成長率は 17% 前後であったと試算されています。市場規模は2016年から17年の1000億ドル以上から2020年には2280億ドルに到達すると期待されています。また、デリーや西ベンガル州、テランガナ州、マハラシュタラ州、タミルナドゥ州、グジャラート州といった主な州では 100% の外国直接投資が自動承認ルートで認められております。今回の新型コロナウイルス感染症の影響は技術部分に著しい影響を与えています。ポジティブな側面を見ますと、この混乱は遠隔効果を加速化させ、エンド2バリューチェーンの評価、リスク軽減へと素早く焦点を移しました。しかしながら、この部門には新たな機会と希望の兆しもあります。日本は技術先進国でありますが、近年は中国、台湾との競争激化を受け、日系企業の国内外における存在感が低下しています。2019年の日本エレクトロニクス産業の総生産額は、2010年の 15.33 兆円から約 10.5 兆円に減少しております。電子製品の革新と若年層ターゲットが成長へのチャンスとなると考えております。故に、インドは日本にとって製造コストを下げ、成長市場を手に入れるための理想的なパートナーであると考えております。コロナ収束後は200以上の多国籍企業が電子部品を調達するためにインドに目を向けています。すべてのテック大手がインドにデザインセンターとインキュベーションセンターを持っています。日本もサプライチェーンの多様化を計画しています。インドでは日本企業の受け入れを拡大を進めるためにビジネスのしやすい環境整備を進めております。破産法の整備でありますとか、法人税の半減などがこの取り組みの一部です。 インドと日本は互いに補完できるものが多くあり、高い成長の可能性がある電子機器グローバル市場に世界的に競争力のある価格で高品質の電子製品を提供することが期待できます。近日産業競争力と協力体制、エレクトロニクス対話、GIM、日本ものづくり学校、GIT によってさらにそれが強化されます。以上です。
それでは続きまして、経済産業省通商交渉官、柏原京子様より、サプライチェーンの多様化の必要性と題しましてご挨拶いただきたく存じます。柏原交渉官、よろしくお願いいたします。
はい、柏原でございます。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。My name is Kyoko Kashiwabara from METI. I'll do my speech today. So first of all, I would like to thank the Embassy of India for giving me the opportunity to speak at this webinar today. I am very pleased that Japan and India have been enjoying an excellent bilateral relationship based on the mutual trust between Prime Minister Abe and Prime Minister Modi. Today, the world is facing a new threat in the form of COVID-19, and economic activities are shrinking. I would like to pay my sincere respects to the Government of India for not standing still at this very difficult time and for organizing this webinar fully utilizing the digital technology in order to deepen Japan-India bilateral industrial cooperation. The impact of COVID-19 is very severe in Japan too. The pandemic has affected many Japanese companies, both large corporations and SMEs, regardless of size. The Japanese government is providing support to companies to help maintain their employees without resorting to layoff. In order to support MSEs and micro SMEs, who are particularly vulnerable, the Japanese government has just started the provision of a fiscal support to sustain business operations based on the passage of the supplementary budget to implement the emergency economic measures of this April. The impacts of COVID-19 are not limited to domestic economic activities. Triggered by global restrictions on cross-border traffic in response to the pandemic, supply chains of goods essential for people's well-being and their economic activities have been affected. It has caused shortage of various products in many countries around the world, including Japan. These disruptions are primarily caused by the fact that the global supply chains have been left vulnerable due to a high degree of concentration of the production base. Based on such experience, to minimize the risk of disruptions to the supply of essential goods in the event of unanticipated crisis, it is necessary to establish a sustainable and responsible supply system through diversification of the production base, especially in the Asian region. The emergency economic measures of this April includes a budgetary support for the diversification of production facilities in the Asian region. Japanese companies in India may be eligible for this support if they are evaluated as being effective in achieving the policy objective of strengthening the resilience of supply chains, including cases where the introduction of production bases in India would contribute to a more resilient Japan-ASEAN supply chain. Supply chains for essential goods for the economy and society will remain global even in the aftermath of the corona pandemic. It is impossible for one country alone to establish these supply chains. There are Japanese companies who are reviewing their global supply chains based on their experience with the coronavirus. One of the most important factors for companies to decide where to invest is the ease of doing business in that country. Attracting foreign investment is a global competition. The development of an attractive investment climate is more important than ever for India to be chosen as an investment destination. Last December, on the occasion of METI Minister Kajiyama's visit to India, Minister Kajiyama and Minister Goyal together established the Japan-India Industrial Competitiveness Partnership. Under this framework, The officials of the two countries have been discussing measures to enhance the competitiveness of the Indian industries and to improve the business environment for Japanese companies operating in India. METI continues to be committed to establishing a win-win relationship for both Japan and India. COVID-19 has brought about various problems, but it is also necessary to think about how we can turn this situation into a positive opportunity. An example would be the promotion of digitalization. METI Japan and METI India established the Japan-India Digital Partnership in October 2018. Japan and India will complement one another through each of their strengths, as hardware for Japan and software for India, and will promote cooperation in fields such as startups, electronics ecosystem, digital personnel, and next-generation networks. Lastly, I would like to finish off by expressing my strong expectations that the industrial collaboration between Japan and India will be further enhanced through today's webinar and the following networking opportunity. Thank you very much for your attention.
先ほどの柏原交渉官のご挨拶の通訳をいたします。このような場でお話しする機会をいただき感謝いたします。日本とインドは安倍首相とモディ首相の信頼関係のもと、これまで良好な関係を構築してきており、嬉しく思います。今日、世界中が COVID-19 という新たな脅威に直面し、経済活動が縮小しております。このような困難の中にあって、日印の産業強化を進化させるべく、このようなウェビナーを開催されたインド政府の皆様に敬意を表します。COVID-19 の影響は日本においても甚大です。企業に関わらず、多くの日本企業に影響が出ている状況です。特に深刻な影響を受ける中小小規模事業者に対しては、先月、緊急経済対策に関わる補正予算が国会を通過したことを受けて、持続化給付金の支給を開始したところです。COVID-19 の影響は国内の経済活動に影響を与えているものではありません。感染拡大防止のために各国で越境移動制限が強化されることを契機として、人々の健康、経済活動に重要な物資のサプライチェーンが混乱しました。日本のみならず世界各国で調達に支障をきたす事態を招いたのです。今般の危機でサプライチェーンの脆弱性をもたらした最大の要因は、国際的に生産拠点の集中度が高くなっていたことです。今般の経験を踏まえ、予期せぬ危機に際して重要物資の供給途絶を生じさせるリスクを解消するため、特にアジア地域における生産拠点の多元化などによって持続可能で責任ある供給体制を確立する必要があると考えています。緊急経済対策には、アジア地域における生産拠点の多元化を図るための予算も含まれています。インドにいる日本企業についてもサプライチェーン強靭化という政策目的に合致し、インドへの設備導入が日 ASEAN のサプライチェーン強靭化に資すると判断された場合には、助対等となり得ます。COVID-19 後も、経済や社会に必要な物資のサプライチェーンを一国だけで形成することは不可能です。日本企業の中にもコロナ危機を踏まえてグローバルなサプライチェーンを見直す動きがあります。企業が投資先を選択する中での最も重要な判断要素の一つとして、その国にビジネスがしやすい環境が整っているかがあります。特設装置の誘致はグローバルな競争であり、インドが投資先として選ばれるには魅力ある投資環境の提供が何よりも重要です。昨年12月に梶山大臣が訪印し、小原大臣と会談した際、新たな取り組みとして日印産業競争力パートナーシップを立て上げ、インドの産業競争力強化に向けた取り組みや、インドに進出している日系企業のビジネス環境整備などについて議論を行ってきています。引き続き日印双方にとってウィンウィンとなるような関係構築に向け、経産省としても尽力していきたいと思います。COVID-19 により大きな課題が生じましたが、この危機をチャンスに変えるという考え方も必要です。例えばデジタル化の推進です。日印間では2018年10月に経産省と電子情報技術庁との間で日印デジタルパートナーシップを立ち上げました。ハードに強い日本とソフトに強いインドで相互補完的に協力し、スタートアップ、エレクトロニクス、エコシステム、デジタル人材、次世代ネットワークなどの分野で引き続き協力を推進していきたい所存です。今回のセミナーを通じて日印の産業連携が前進することを期待します。ご清聴ありがとうございました。以上です。
続きまして、インド政府電子情報技術省次官補サウラブ・ガウル様より、インドの部門別の概況と投資機会についてご講演いただきます。 Next, I would like to request Mr. Saurabh Gaur, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information and Technology, Government of India, to give the presentation on sector overview and investment opportunities in India.
Thank you, Nasumi-san. It is my proud privilege to be presenting the India's growth story in electronics manufacturing to this august audience. I would like to begin by thanking the Indian Embassy in Japan for providing me this opportunity to give a purview of the emerging digital India that is unfolding before our eyes. India is on its way to become a global electronics hub, and electronics sector has been growing at a rate of 25% cumulative growth rate over the last 5 years. We have around 1.2 billion mobile subscribers and 601 million internet users in the country. The data usage has been growing by almost 400% in last few years, and the startup ecosystem in India is thriving. Some artifacts of digital India that I would like to bring to the notice of this audience, which are among the best in the world, are the unified payment interface and the unique identification framework in the country. So if you see here, we've been growing, our per capita consumption expenditure has been growing almost doubled over the last 7 years. And so the digital transformation has brought both economic prosperity as well as it has led to increase in GDP per capita income while making India one of the fastest growing major economies of the world. We have a huge amount of demographic dividend also, because as our population has grown, our average population is 28 years as compared to some of the other major industrial economies of the world where it is more than 40 years. So what we are looking at in electronic sector in India is a market opportunity of 127 billion US dollars at present, which is dominated by industrial electronics at 34%, which also includes medical electronics and auto electronics, where we have significant presence of Japanese companies. Mobile has been, similarly, the component market also has been growing tremendously and at around 40% over the last 4 years. And mobile has been the dominant category, where we have grown from 2 units of mobile manufacturing in 2014 to 264 units at present. This includes around 127 mobile manufacturing units and others which are engaged in components and sub-assembly manufacturing. The mobile handsets production in terms of volume has almost grown 5 times in last 5 years, and we are the world's second largest mobile manufacturer. In value terms, our production has increased by 10 times. If you look at the electronic systems landscape in the country, you will see that it is dominated in the north by the province of Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, with Gurugram and Noida being the key areas where companies have set up their bases. Similarly, in western part of the country, in Maharashtra, in Pune, Mumbai and Aurangabad, whereas in the south, it is Hyderabad in Telangana, Tirupati and City in Andhra Pradesh, and Bangalore in Karnataka, and Sriperumbudur and Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu. The way we are able to do better than other companies and our strengths in manufacturing arise from the minimal factor prices. So power in India is available at an average rate of $80 per megawatt hour. Wages are $150 per month, and land is almost available across the country. It varies from one place to other, but the industrial land pricing is around $65 per square meter. for sale as well as long-term lease purposes. We've run a number of incentive schemes already to promote electronics manufacturing, some of which include One Nation, One Tax in form of GST. Similarly, we have custom duty exemption for capital goods import in the country. We also allow import of used machinery for relocation of plants, which I believe is very important in these times when companies are looking at reorganizing their global supply chains and relocating from one country to other. We have also been providing capital investment subsidy schemes and infrastructure development schemes that I would talk about in detail. What we have is to support the startup ecosystem. We have an electronics development fund where we have supported around 80 startups, and we have built a corpus of 785 million US dollars for this purpose. Similarly, in the emerging technologies, especially in display, for AMOLED as well as for flexible electronics, and in the field of medical electronics, for biophysics, we have set up centers of excellence with the Indian Institute of Science and the Indian Institute of Technologies, which are producing world-class talent. And there is a lot of IP creation also that is happening in these national centers of excellence. Now, there are 3 new schemes that have been approved by the Union government, the Government of India, to promote electronics manufacturing in the country, which are aimed at large-scale electronic manufacturing, along with special impetus on the electronic components ecosystem, as well as semiconductor manufacturing, while providing world-class infrastructure. So the first scheme, which is the mother scheme, is the production-linked incentive scheme, which is primarily targeted towards mobile phones and the surface mount technology components, as well as ATMP. Here, we are committed to provide 6% of production-linked incentive. So whatever a company is manufacturing, if it is engaged in the field of mobile manufacturing or the component manufacturing, we are going to provide 6% production-linked incentive to such companies. And the government has approved 6 billion US dollars of incentive commitment over the next 5 years. The next important scheme, which I believe again has huge potential to bring out synergy between Japanese industrial players as well as domestic manufacturers here in India, is the electronic component and semiconductor manufacturing scheme. Here we are looking at providing 25% capital investment incentive for electronic components, integrated circuits, and semiconductors. So whoever is coming and setting up a manufacturing unit here on plant, machinery, utilities, equipment, technology, research and development, all of this, 25% of cost is going to be, capital investment is going to be subsidized by the Government of India. Finally, we have the electronics manufacturing cluster scheme, where we are partnering with the state governments and setting up plug and play infrastructure in association with anchor unit. The way this is going to work is that if a big company is coming to set up an industrial park in the country, then all the associated internal as well as external infrastructure development is going to be done by the state and central governments put together. So these 3 schemes, they are a significant progress in the ease of doing business, as well as they show our commitment to improve the electronics manufacturing
अच्छा,
ecosystem.
ये फोटो लेते जाना, हाँ, हमको फिर ट्वीट करने के लिए और सब में काम आएगा.
Mona Kandar ma'am, can you please mute? Yes, thank you so much. So in terms of then the other non-schematic interventions that have been done is that we have one of the most attractive corporate tax structure of 15% for new manufacturing units that are going to set up, that have been setting up base in the country. Similarly, we are providing advance authorization for duty-free imports that are tied to exports with minimum 15% value addition happening in the country. We have also come up with a bonded warehouse scheme, which is effectively making every manufacturing unit a small, a mini special economic zone where they can import inputs and capital goods without any custom duties as long as they are exporting their products. Input production is used sales to the domestic tariff area, that part is only taxed. Like I said earlier, we have a very booming startup ecosystem in the country. We are number 3 in the world with more than 50,000 startups and having a valuation of almost 100 billion US dollars. India is also the global R&D destination with more than 1140 R&D centers of all the big multinational companies of the world. We have fabulous design R&D centers for all the big companies such as Qualcomm, Intel, and Samsung in Bangalore. Similarly, Apple, Amazon, and Uber are setting up their R&D centers in Hyderabad. So apart from the native countries, the biggest R&D activity is happening in India, and that is led by the huge pool of engineers that we are producing year on year. So I conclude by saying that we welcome you to come and manufacture in India for the world. We are the largest emerging destination for electronics manufacturing in the entire world. And in these times, as Japanese as well as Indian companies look at transforming their supply chains to ensure continuity of their business plans, I believe there is great deal of synergy that is available. We have some very good Japanese companies already there in the country. I'm sure they'll be talking about their experiences. And we have Indian companies also, which are very much eager to contribute and collaborate with the Japanese companies as we welcome them to participate in the electronics sector manufacturing activities that are unfolding in the country. Thank you so much for your time. Arigato.
インド政府電子情報技術庁次官のサウラブ・ガウル氏によるプレゼンテーションのサマリーを申し上げます。インドは世界最大かつ世界で最も急速な拡大を見せている経済国であり、国民1人当たりの可処分所得はこの7年間で倍増しています。特にインドの電子機器製造は携帯電話や消費者家電、戦略的電子機器といった小部門における需要が高まっていることから、約1270億ドルの市場機会が期待されています。インドは携帯電話の生産段数で世界第2位に躍進しており、国内には携帯電話機やその部品製造から組み立て工程を担う関連製造拠点が200カ所以上存在しています。携帯電話以外にも消費者家電や産業用電子機器、コンピューターハードウェア、戦略的電子機器、電子部品といった小部門もこの4年間で2倍の成長を遂げています。インドはデリー首都圏やタミルナドゥ州、アンドラプラデシュ州、マハラシュタラ州、カルナタカ州やテランナガ州など、国内各地に電子機器製造クラスターを開発してきました。また、インドは ASEAN 諸国と比べても製造コストが低いことで知られています。電気使用量はキロワット時あたり80ドル、1ヶ月の最低賃金は150ドル、事業用地の最低価格は1平方メートルあたり65ドルです。インド政府が電子機器部門に導入している関税介入及び非関税介入についてご案内いたします。関税介入といたしましては、関税制度の合理化や特定資本財の BCD 免除、GST の実施や携帯電話や消費者家電の事業者向け段階的製造業プログラムの施行を行っております。関税介入といたしまして、中古機械類輸入手続きの簡略化、そして義務登録手続き制度の手続きの導入を行っております。インド国内の電子機器環境整備を目指す優遇策をご案内いたします。特別優遇策パッケージ政策といたしまして、設備投資額に対し 25% の優遇策を提供。結果、410件、総投資額150億ドルに上る投資案件が寄せられています。この優遇策は2018年12月に終了したものです。電気機器製造クラスターの開発、国内15州で23件の開発案件が進行中です。また3565エーカーの事業地で20件の新規 EMC 及び3件の共用施設開発が計画されています。電子部門開発基金、イノベーションや知的財産創造、 R&D や製品開発の促進を目指すファンド・オブ・ファンドです。同基金には EDF から9500万ドルの資金が寄せられています。目標投資額は7億8500万 US ドルです。また州内にナショナルセンター・オブ・エクセレンスというのを設立しています。こちらでは大面積フレキシブルエレクトロニクスや内部保全技術、アンボルトディスプレイ、療養生物物理学向け電子機器などの製造が行われています。また、電子機器情報技術庁では、電子機器ボムに刺激を与える施策を3件発表しています。この一つが生産連動型優遇策 PLI です。5年間にわたり生産活動に連動し、4% から 6% の優遇策を提供いたします。一つが電子機器半導体生産促進政策。5年間で行われた設備投資額の 25% に対し、財政優遇を適用いたします。電子機器製造クラスター政策 EMC2.0 は、プラグ&プレイ設備を備えた特定産業向けのインフラの開発を目指す政策です。また、インド国内における製造拠点向けに、税制や関税制度の改革を実施しております。国内企業に対する法人税率を 30% から 22% に下げております。また、製造業に新規参入する事業者に対しては 15% の法人税率を適用しております。この法人税率の改革により、約207億ドルの税収をインド政府は放棄したことになります。また、事前認可制度の導入を行っております。輸出向け製品に使われた輸入資材の関税免除、輸出品について最低付加価値率を 15% にしております。輸入資材や輸入資本財に対し、繰り延べ関税を適用、一般関税地域内での販売時に納付義務が生じます。なお、輸入品については、基本関税 PCD が免除となります。インド国内には発達したスタートアップ環境が存在しております。国内には5万社以上のスタートアップが創業している。時価総額は950億ドルです。2016年以降、290億ドルの投資がインドのスタートアップに投資されています。ユニコーン企業数は現在30社、これは2017年以降、23社の増加を見せています。また330以上のインキュベーターやアクセレレーターが存在し、年平均成長率 40% で拡大中です。インドは世界第一の R&D 進出先となっておりまして、多国籍企業が所有する R&D 施設が国内に140カ所ございます。以上です。
続きまして、ジェトロ理事、中条和也様より、エレクトロニクス産業誘致に向けた環境整備の方向性についてご講演いただきます。中条理事、よろしくお願いいたします。
はい、中条でございます。聞こえておりますでしょうか。はい、
大丈夫です。
はい、わかりました。本日は、エレクトロニクス産業誘致に向けた環境整備の方向性、というテーマでお話をさせていただければと思います。ジェトロの中条と申します。昨年の7月まで3年弱、インドの方に駐在をしておりました。現在は南アジアの統括業務をジェトロの方で、担わせていただいております。本日はよろしくお願いいたします。インドがですね、国際競争力を持つ産業というのはですね、科学、医薬、それから有名な情報通信、ソフト関係ですね、土木エンジニアリング、自動車、機械、繊維、こういった分野になります。が、電気産業はですね、脆弱と言わざるを得ない状況であります。一方で、インドでは先ほど来説明があったようにですね、モバイル経済、情報通信の高度化が進んでおりまして、携帯電話の普及台数は今11億台以上となっております。で、うち、いわゆるスマホなどのですね、多機能端末の契約数はその半分の満たない数字になっておりましてですね、例えば中国ではもうすでに、スマホというのはもう行き渡っている状況なんですけれども、つまり、なんていうのかな、買い替え需要しかないというような状況なんですけれども、これはインドがこれからということであります。単純に申し上げれば、新規にあと7億台、スマホが売れるということになるわけであります。 それで、今、中国とか台湾を中心にですね、スマホの組み立て、あるいは部材を製造する設備の拡張が続いております。ただ、そこが今、少し、この設立のスピードが弱いものですから、組み立てに比べるとですね、部材の方が、非常に単純に申し上げますと、インドでスマホが売れれば売れるほど、特にその中国からの半導体とか電子部品の輸入が増えると、こういう構図になっているわけであります。で、こういう背景からインドもかねてからですね、エレクトロニクス産業の立地、それから設備投資に特例的なインセンティブを設けて、誘致に取り組んでこられたというふうに認識をしております。時限立法であったこの立地特例が昨年切れておりましたので、今回新たに特例が復活したということで、我々も期待をしているところであります。で、これからちょっとこの図を見ていただきますけれども、インドには今、1500近い日本企業が立地をしております。まだまだ中国や ASEAN に比べると、その集積が十分でないということが言えると思います。でこの図はですね、外務省の一昨年秋の調査の結果でございますけれども、インドにおける日系企業の拠点数ですね、ロケーションの数が5100、中国が3万3000、ASEAN の10カ国合わせて1万3000ということですから、インドはまだ中国の7分の1、ASEAN の4割に過ぎないということでありまして、インドの市場のポテンシャルの高さから考えると、まだまだこの拡大の余地があるという状況であります。特にそのエレクトロニクス産業の進出が進まない理由でございますけれども、私は2つの要因があると考えています。で、1つは、国民所得のまだまだ途上である低いという状況の中で、あるいは、国民性がですね、非常にその低価格志向であるということからですね、この低価格な市場であるということであります。先ほどのスマホの例で申し上げますと、インドにおけるスマホのですね、価格は普及品ではもう1万円を切っております。売れ筋は1万円から2万円、というところだと思います。日本でも普及品というのは出回ってきておりますけれども、インドのですね、市場というのはなかなか価格が取りにくい、それから輸入品も含めた競争も熾烈であるという環境になっております。完成品がそういうことであるということであれば、部材に至ってはですね、より厳しいその価格の状況が出てくるということが一つであります。これが一つの進まない理由というふうに考えております。で、2つ目はインフラであります。インドには優秀な人材、それからコスト競争力、エンジニアリング力が備わっているわけであります。ただし、いざですね、このものを運ぼうということになると、そのインフラの不備からですね、時間がかかる、時間が読めない、物が壊れるというようなことが起こります。道路の状況や港湾の状況、鉄道の状況、近年改善はされているとはいえですね、これが今後立地を進めていく上でのボトルネックになるということであります。特に電子、精密品になればなるほどね、この障害が大きくなるということであります。で、インドにですね、一方でこの大きな将来性がある中で、こうしたデメリットをどうやって克服していくか、インドをどういうふうに活用するか、これを考えていかなければいけないということであります。で、これはですね、まずこの表の前に、インドの日系企業のデモグラフィーですけれども、やはり日本の企業はですね、自動車を中心するサプライチェーンを構成する企業が大層を占めています。でこういった企業のターゲットの市場はですね、インドの国内ということになるわけです。で最近、インドの日系企業を対象としてですね、輸出の状況を調査したのがこの図であります。輸出に取り組んでいる企業が6割ある一方でですね、輸出比率は低いという結果になっております。 これはまた別の調査なんですけれども、日系製造業のですね、輸出比率をアジア太平洋の16カ国で比較したものであります。インド製品のですね、輸出比率はこれら諸国ではほぼ最低に近いところにありまして、17.8% であります。国内需要の旺盛さ、成長性からですね、インド市内を主向け地とする生産が中心になることは否めません。が、インドのですね、エンジニアリング力やコスト競争力を生かして、輸出市場に目を向ける企業が増えていることもまた事実であります。ここにいくつか例を挙げております。日系を代表する企業ともいえるマルチスズキ、ここはインド生産のうち10万台を日本を含む外国に輸出をしております。ホンダ二輪でございますけれども、インド製品をですね、アジア、オセアニア、南米、欧州、中東22カ国に展開をしております。ダイキンさんはですね、生産のうち1割を中東アフリカ、ラベに向けに増やしていきたい。より重要なのはですね、コンプレッサー、このエアコンの非常に中心的な部材であるコンプレッサーをタイからインドに生産移管をしたい。つまり、インドをマザー工場にしていきたいというお考えを持っているという点であります。このようにですね、輸出を、インドを使って輸出をしていこうというような企業が、増えている。こうすることでですね、価格が取れないというリスクを低減したり、それからインドの立地をうまく、インドの立地のメリットをうまく生かしていくということになります。で、もう一つここに表を用意したんですけれども、これは輸出比率とですね、収益を比較した図表であります。輸出をする企業の収益率がですね、インドにおいてはですね、より良い数字が出ているということがお分かりになるかと思います。インド政府は一昨年、電気部品の関税率をそれまでの倍の 15% に引き上げてあります。これで輸入代替を図ろうという政策なんだと思います。で、輸入代替政策そのものを否定するわけではございませんが、輸入代替の下ではですね、インド国内で生産をする企業は常にスマグリング、ダンピング、こうした脅威にさらされることになります。むしろ私はですね、インドの強みであるエンジニアリング力であるとか、人材力、コスト競争力を生かして、グローバルに活躍する企業をレッドカーペットで迎え入れると。こういう政策が取られるべきではないかというふうに考えております。すなわちですね、立地インセンティブにより輸入代替の実現を図ると。さらに、その同時にですね、輸出産業の育成政策を実施すると、こういうことになります。これによりですね、インドに立地し生産する企業は、インドの良い環境を利用しながら利益率を向上することが可能になるわけであります。2つ目のディスアドバンテージでありますインフラでございますけれども、これが輸出を行おうとする日系企業にとっての最大の障害になっています。輸出を行う日系企業への調査では、輸出の障害はですね、道路インフラ、港湾の混雑、行政手続きコストに起因するリードタイムの長さ、こういうふうになっております。品質は企業の努力で改善できますけれども、その努力を起こさせる環境ですね。これを作ることが大事であります。インフラ整備や貿易のですね、障害除去の重要性については、昨年12月に出された OECD の経済報告でもですね、明確に述べられていることであります。でもう一つ付け加えますと、立地規制ですね、特にインドは乾燥地が多いものですから、排水規制が他国に比べて極めて厳しいという状況にあります。で、多くの国はその排水のリユースはですね、飲料水としての提供というふうにところまで来ているんです。それがインドの地域によってはですね、厳しすぎる。特にその水を使うことが多いその電子産業にとっては、それがボトルネックになり得るということであります。 最後になりますが、まとめになりますが、エレクトロニック産業を健全な競争環境のもとにですね、誘致をし、インドに根付かせ、それをまた輸出も含めてですね、インドの新たな成長のエンジンにしていくということを考えますと、やはりインフラの整備とか、過度の立地規制の改善は急務であります。私もインドを応援する立場としてですね、この面の改善に早急に取り組んでいただくよう、インド政府の、それからインド政府およびですね、連邦政府および州政府の皆さんに申し上げてですね、私の報告とさせていただきます。ご清聴ありがとうございました。
Now the summary of the presentation by Mr. Kazuya Nakajo, Executive Vice President of JETRO. Greetings, my name is Nakajo. I'm a Vice President of JETRO. I had been JETRO New Delhi representative for the last 3 years until July last year. Currently, I oversee South Asian affairs as a part of my responsibility. Today, I'd like to speak in relation with today's webinar theme, electric sector challenges and emerging opportunity. Now, India is a country which has a global edge in sectors like chemicals, pharmaceuticals, IT engineering, automotives, machineries, and textiles. However, it has to be pointed out that country's electronic sector is rather weak. On the other hand, the country is known for its advanced IT-related services, such as mobile payment. The number of mobile phone subscribers in India is over 1.1 billion. But when it comes to the number of subscribers using multifunctional mobile phones or smartphones, it's less than half. Smartphones have already deep penetration in China. India is the next market. Simply said, we can sell at least 700 million smartphones in India. The manufacturing and assembly of smartphones are expanding in China and Taiwan. If more smartphones become available in India, that means India will be importing many semiconductors or electronic components that are made either in China or Taiwan. Realizing such a future prospect, the government of India introduced special incentives or policies to promote the growth of the country's electronic sector by inviting foreign players, including Japanese companies. The number of Japanese companies operating in India is about 1,500. Together, they have 5,100 establishments in India. In China, however, the number of Japanese establishments jumps to 33,000. In all ASEAN countries, it's 13,000 establishments. Considering the potential of the Indian market, 5,100 establishment is very small. Now, let me point out 2 reasons why Japanese electronics companies are hesitant to enter India. One is that India is a hard to make profit country. The average income of Indian national remains low, and commodity prices, including the price of smartphones, remain low. The cheapest mobile phones are sold for less than 10,000 yen in India. Prices of popular models will be around 10,000 to 20,000 yen. Cheap smartphones became available in Japan as well, but they cannot beat the price of smartphones in India. When considering doing business in India, many companies may only focus on domestic market. However, in order to be profitable by going into Indian market, one has to consider exporting their goods to overseas markets from India. Second point is infrastructure, especially in logistics. India has excellent human resources and cost competitiveness, but its logistic network is not reliable. It takes time and you can't figure out when your cargo is arriving. In some cases, you may find damage to your cargo. I have to say that under the immature logistic infrastructure is acting as a bottlenecking factor for Japanese companies. Solid and reliable logistic network is necessary to boost the export by Japanese companies. Of course, conditions of roads, ports, and railways in India have shown great improvement in recent years. but they need to be improved further. Though we have some issues, a fact that India has a great potential remains unchanged. We have to consider how we could overcome issues that Japanese companies may face in India and how we could utilize the great potential that India has to offer. In order to invite Japanese electronic industry to India and utilize them as a new growth engine of the country, those points I mentioned need immediate attention. It is my sincere hope for the officials of the government of India to swiftly address issues faced by Japanese companies. Thank you for your kind attention.
ここでプログラムの途中ではございますが、Q&A セッション、質疑応答についてご案内させていただきます。参加者は講演中であっても画面中央のチャットの機能を利用して、ホストへ質問を送信することができます。で質問したい登壇者名をご記入の上、ホスト&プレゼンターズ、ホストと、登壇者宛てにして、メールを、チャットを送信してください。でいただいたご質問は質疑応答の時間16時40分からですね、に登壇者よりご回答させていただきます。We may request all the participants to send your questions to host and presenters through chat function even during the presentation. These queries will be replied only during the question and answer session at 1640. では続きまして、Invest India MD&CEO ディーパク・バグラ様より外国直接投資環境の円滑化と強化に関しましてご講演いただきます。Next, I would like to request Mr. Deepak Bagla, MD and CEO, India to give the presentation on enhanced FDI ecosystem and facilitation.
Thank you, Natsumi-san. Kashibara-san and Nakajo-san, so good to see you again. It's been a little while, and see how interesting it is and what a disruptional event COVID has made that today we are talking to each other virtually. But you know, the most interesting thing of this disruptional event, which is probably the biggest disruptional event in our living lives, is that it has created unprecedented opportunities. And especially where India is concerned, and I remember Nakajo-san, when I was in Tokyo last, you and I were doing a lunch together in that Indian restaurant. And we had said that the huge potential of Japan and India is yet to take shape. And we had said that it will happen in the next 24 to 36 months. And with this huge opportunity, I will not be surprised if it happens much faster. What this entire disruptional COVID has done, that it has created an opportunity which is unprecedented, not just in the world, but also in India. And what is more interested within that is that our companies in Japan, our partners in Japan, are probably one of the best suited to utilize this opportunity. And I will tell you why. If you know, Prime Minister Abe and Prime Minister Modi together had directed that a special desk be set up. It's called Japan Plus. It is within Invest India to handhold Japanese companies coming into India and provide them complete handholding from the time they think of an idea to come into India to help them get into commercial production, and at the same point of time for existing companies to help them with all their issues which there are. And that is a special team which is already working. And we all know, with many of you who are on the call, how closely we've been working with some of you, sorting out your problems, even during the COVID period. I know the team had been working 24/7 with a number of companies from across the globe, and including a large number of Japanese companies, to help them through this entire process. You see, what is happening in India is that Japan is one of the best respected brands in India. And what that has happened, it is probably the only relationship which we have where we have 12 dedicated industrial townships only for Japanese companies to come to India and to establish themselves there. And now I see with this entire effort that taking off. Let me confine myself to 2 or 3 points. The first is the unprecedented opportunity, which I said. As per all global estimates, India will retain its position as one of the fastest growing economies in the world, even after COVID. In fact, even during this period, just immediately after, it is one of the few economies in the world which has been estimated to show a positive growth. You've heard about the market potential in electronics. There are other sectors too, and these are going to go tremendously where India is concerned. And I'll tell you why am I saying that. One of the biggest things which this government has done, and we had our Honorable Prime Minister address the nation even yesterday, how he's looked at it and converting it into a huge opportunity with significant number of reforms which happened very recently and which are now in the offing to start happening. You will see some of these reforms and you will hear about them later from the 3 state governments which are speaking about. But Nakajo-san spoke about ease of doing business, and Kashiwara-san also mentioned about that. It is not just the jump which we've made so far. I think that is just the beginning. And what you will see in the next 24 months or the 36 months, India achieving a position in the top 25, top 50 on the ease of doing business. But more importantly, the reforms which are happening both at the central level and the state level together. What these reforms are doing is, one, the ease of doing business and the problems which investor may face, soothing them out on a fast track basis. In fact, whenever any of you plan to be in India, Invest India will give you a dedicated relationship manager who will stay with you right through your journey in India, help you establish your plant, get you the approvals, guide you on what the approvals are required, and even after setting the plant, help you whenever there are any issues for resolution. That is our promise to you, that you will have a dedicated relationship manager. The other interesting thing is a number of state governments have now come up with landmark reforms of the same kind. One, the investor being handheld well at the state level. Two, deemed approvals. The entire thing about approvals taking a long time. A number of these state governments have come up where if you do not get approvals within a time period, it is taken as deemed approvals. These are landmark approvals. In the past 7 days, we've had number of reforms coming across even on our labor laws. There is a new system which is now coming up where hopefully in the course of the next few months, we are putting it digitally where land banks will be available. You will be able to go on our website or a special site and you will see where they are available. From yourself sitting in Japan, you will be able to see that. We have an India investment grid. You can go on to that platform and you can see where are the investable opportunities available in India. And you can get in touch with them directly. What I'm trying to say, and Nakajo-san, you mentioned about logistics. Already, the entire focus of the government has been on improvement of logistics. In fact, in the past 36 months, one of the most efficient changes we've seen is the time taken on the ports and the clearance mechanisms. They've come up with new ways where they've reduced the timing drastically. And I think you and all your Japanese investors in India will acknowledge that. But that is just the beginning. What is happening now is everything happening on a fast track. In fact, with Invest India, we have a special desk with the customs where all your investors, whenever they have a problem, all their issues are fast tracked to do with customs and ports. That is already. So the other effort of the entire government effort is increasing the investments in infrastructure. And as you know, when I'm seeing a large level of investments, even from global investors on infrastructure. During the course of the next 24, 36 months, you will see a very significant reduction in the logistics costs which are happening here. You mentioned about the price sensitivity in India. And that is where Japanese and India partnership come in together. There are a number of Japanese companies which have opened R&D centers. You know that just about 2 years ago, we started the startup bridge between India and Japan. And to my mind, that is going to be one of the biggest driving factors of the Indo-Japan corridor, where you will see innovative, frugal solutions, not just for the people of India and Japan, but for the entire world coming out of this partnership. That is what is going to be the strength of that partnership. And going back to it, I must give you a little thought. We just had a big retail Japanese company open a store in India. I think it was late last year. One of the highest grossing sales on day one happened there in India. That is where India is changing fast. India, because of the growth which you are seeing, which is going to be one of the fastest, largest growing economies in the world, which I already mentioned to you, that will bring up the people, what we talk of our demographic dividend, a large number of people moving up the economic class. During the course of the next 2 to 7 years, you will see one of the largest emerging middle classes coming out of this place. And that is what the market segment and the opportunity which India presents. I would urge you all to hear very carefully the 3 state governments we've requested to join us today. They will give you the reforms which have happened in the past 2 or 3 weeks, especially, and don't be surprised. During the course of the next 90 to 120 days, you will see a large number of reforms being announced, each one of them making India more investor friendly and reducing the cost of doing business in India and making your businesses more efficient. And when I said that today Japanese business is best positioned to utilize this huge opportunity, let me tell you, today Japanese business reach 300 million Indians virtually on a daily level. The opportunity, however, is we still have 1 more billion which have yet to be touched. And this is where, for all of us on this call, for our friends at METI, for our friends in the Indian Embassy in Japan, for our friends at JETRO, all of us and we at Invest India are committed to you to ensure your success and also to ensure that we reach those extra 1 billion market which has not yet been touched. So this story is now beginning, and you will hear this, already the incentives and the good initiatives taken in the sector of electronics. And now I will request all our state governments to share with you. On behalf of Invest India, on behalf of my team and the Japan Plus team, we look forward to welcoming you. And any questions you have, any support you require, we are there with you. Thank you.
インベストインディア社長兼 CEO のディーパック・バグラ様のプレゼンテーションの内容をサマリーでお伝えいたします。インベストインディアはジャパンデスクという単位投資を検討する日本企業専用の窓口をジェトロとともに共同で開設しております。こちらでは事業内容の設定から進出先提案、優遇政策の案内、インド各州の紹介や問題解決支援などを行っております。また、インド国内9州に12の日本企業専用産業団地が開設されております。これらの統合産業団地は世界レベルのインフラ設備やプラグインプレイ設備を備え、即時入居が可能です。また、日本企業向けに事前承認手続きや投資優遇策も完備しています。日本企業からの要望に応え、インド政府はさらなる支援強化に乗り出しております。特にその中で重要部門としておりますのが、自動車、ESDM 部門、医療機器、消費財、繊維、食品加工などです。現在、ホンダやトヨタ、スズキ、日立やパナソニックを含む日系企業約1500社がインドに進出済みです。現在、COVID-19 の影響下にある日本企業も多々ございますが、インドの長期的な成長神話は損なわれておらず、インベストインディアでは日系企業の皆様によるインド事業の促進や拡大を支援いたします。3月にビジネスイミニティプラットフォームというものを立ち上げました。こちらでは、単位投資を希望される投資家の方を1日24時間無給で支援を行っております。また、世界中の投資家の皆様からこの45日間で寄せられた6500件以上の問い合わせについて、平均4時間で返信を差し上げております。インベストインディアでは各産業におけるビジネス再構築計画に参画し、コロナ後のビジネス活動の迅速な開発を促す 回復を目指す中央政府の取り組みを支援しております。インドの ESDM 市場及び政策改革についてですが、インドの電子部門は2018年から2019年時点で1270億ドル規模と試算されております。また今後2025年までに4000億ドル規模に成長されると期待されております。インドは先ほどからありますが、インドは世界第2位の携帯機器製造国です。巨大な国内市場だけではなく、輸出ハブとしても大きな可能性を秘めています。インド政府は日本からの単位投資促進を目指し、様々な政策や優遇策を部門ごとに導入しています。例えば、新規製造事業者の法人税率を従来の 25% から 25%、または 30% から 15% に変更しております。また、最大5グループを提供する3つの優遇策を導入いたしました。こちらは先ほど、電子情報技術省のガオル氏からもご案内ありましたが、こちらはですね、失礼いたしました。生産連動型優遇策、電子機器半導体生産促進政策、そして電子機器製造クラスター政策の3つです。また、これ以外の支援策といたしまして、2018年10月にインドのモディ首相が日本を訪問された際に、同の機会にインベストインドとジテロの間で日印スタートアップハブというハブを立ち上げております。こちらでは、インド国内のスタートアップと、また日本でスタートアップ企業の技術を求める企業とのマッチングを行っております。つい最近では AI 技術を必要としていたソフトバンク社に対し、その技術を持ったスタートアップとの橋渡しに成功しております。以上です。
続きまして、TDK インディアマネージングダイレクター、ナタラジャン・バラクリシュナン様より、メイクインインディア TDK の経験と題しましてご講演いただきます。Next, I would like to request Mr. Natarajan Balakrishnan, Managing Director, TDK India Private Limited, to share their experience in India.
Good afternoon to all my compatriots from the electronic industry in Japan, my country cousins in the Embassy of India there in Tokyo, friends from Meiti, Invest India, and all the other audience. It's always such a pleasure to be with all of you, sharing our experience of operating in India. TDK India has been operating in India for over 6 decades and with manufacturing facilities for over 25 years. This length of time and our continued presence in itself should explain our experience. TDK Corporation needs no introduction, especially to my colleagues and friends in the electronic industry and electronic industry compatriots in Japan. From the time TDK Corporation started its operation 85 years back and started commercialization of ferrite cores to being well known for its audio and video cassettes, for which everybody is quite aware and has been a customer of TDK. The organization has come a long way, and today TDK Corporation has introduced major advances in core technologies for electronic components for almost every application that touches a common man's daily life. In India, we have been present for over 6 decades, as I mentioned to you. But initially, we were under Siemens Limited, serving as the sales arm of Siemens Matsushita, which subsequently became EPCOS India Private Limited when Siemens Matsushita went public to become EPCOS AG. And now we are under TDK Corporation since October 2008, when the business was bought over by TDK Corporation from EPCOS AG. With respect to our manufacturing, while we were serving the Indian market all through these 6 decades through imports from various other factories of Siemens around the world, in the mid-90s, when India's economy opened up and the opportunities started throwing up, we started considering opportunities for manufacturing so that we are able to get close to our customers then present in India and the customers who we were sure would be coming into India. After exploring the market demand, opportunities, and emerging areas, we narrowed down to production of ferrite cores and film capacitors. Excuse me. For both the products, we started operations under joint venture at Kalyani in West Bengal for ferrites and Nashik in Maharashtra for film capacitors. And in a matter of few years, both the joint ventures became a 100% owned company. Our unit in Kalyani, West Bengal for ferrites, we inherited from a West Bengal state-owned facility called Webel in those days, which was established in 1976. And this factory today is transformed into a modern facility, compacted to half the size, but with much enhanced capacity. And today it is serving the needs of various electronic applications, both within India and for exports too. With respect to our other facility, which is in Nashik at Maharashtra for film capacitors, this was started in a modest 2,000 square meters area, practically serving as a job worker to our principals in Europe. And today, after 25 years, it stands on a land area of 40,000 square meters with a constructed area of 40,000 square meters, which can also be credited as the only of its kind in the entire world, not in the world of TDK, in the entire world of film capacitors, which can really proudly call itself that it's manufacturing the widest brand of film capacitors, starting from very small boxed and resin capacitors to 33 kV capacitors applied in various power networks. Not only that, we offer solutions for automatic power factor correction using these capacitors. When we started our operations, we globally were in far advanced position, and we could bring in many innovations new to the Indian market, and these found ready acceptability with major global players entering the market, and the growth in business was an obvious outcome. Both facilities at Kalyani and Nashik today serve not just the Indian market, but export products across the globe, starting from the Far East market in Japan to the Pacific market to NAFTA market. Of course, over period, come Make in India a few years back, the Make in India initiative with the thrust on electronics manufacturing and mobile phone manufacturing drive, we ventured into producing batteries for mobile phone in 2016 in a third facility at Bawal. You may recall Mr. Bagal mentioning that there are several Japanese manufacturing clusters, and Bawal is one such Japanese manufacturing cluster located in the state of Haryana. This, I would say, was a real game changer and practically reflects what Mr. Bagal was mentioning in terms of what the Indian market could offer to you. This really changed the magnitude of our operations in terms of revenue, and what took us 20 plus years to generate from our Nashik and Kalyani plant could be achieved in just about 2+ years, which means the revenue that grew to a certain level in 20 years, Bawal achieved in 2 years with the mobile phone manufacturing. And it is just not that. Now we have set up an additional plant for battery manufacturing because the demand is really skyrocketing. And the revenue from the battery could perhaps get close to 3 times the revenue that we make out of our traditional products. This can only be attributed to the thrust on electronics manufacturing. If I were to really then summarize my experience with respect to our operations, I would say the market, the business, and the related ecosystem are very supportive. As an example, when we started our operations in Nashik, we were very apprehensive about availability of skilled labor, ability of the labor to absorb the skill and upgrade themselves. And today, we see no dearth of same and find that workers are able to easily upgrade their skills to the needed levels. It is also pertinent to add that 100% of the raw material were imported from Europe at the beginning of the operations. And today, we have almost 60% of our vendor base located in and around our plant within a radius of 200 kilometers. Almost 100% of the raw material is now available within India, and imports are resorted to only on case-to-case basis for technical reasons or for cost considerations. The enthusiasm and entrepreneurship to invest and ability to adapt to technology, process, and quality needs of these entrepreneurs really helped us develop our vendor chain and ancillaries around our factory. The fact that as a huge corporation, we have been able to retain our position as a leader reflects the fact that one can not only produce to global standards, but also compete effectively with local competition and still retain leadership position. Our increased demand for land at Nashik and Bawal, as we kept growing, has been wholeheartedly supported by the local administration and authorities in an effective manner, which really facilitated our growth. We could get the land on time, we could get the approvals on time, and we could really get our operations started to meet our growth plan and to meet our customer demands. Required regulatory approvals from related government bodies came in, and we really could start our operations on time without any delay due to these regulatory requirements. The ongoing efforts of MeitY to continuously review the incentives and support to us, interacting closely with all the stakeholders like us, and facilitating the progress of proposals with needed actions are really encouraging. Most importantly, I would like to add that for companies that are compliant to local regulations, running an operation is without any hindrance. And last but most important, I believe with what Prime Minister of India has envisioned and offered yesterday to transform the economy, I'm very optimistic about Indian market and our business here in India. I would strongly recommend that you take the next step forward, for this is a market that cannot be ignored. Thank you very much.
TDK インド社長のバラクリシュナン氏のプレゼンテーションのサマリーを申し上げます。TDK を代表して皆様にご挨拶申し上げます。世界中で知られている TDK はエネルギー、送電、電気の質、自動車、工業用エレクトロニクス、家電、電気通信、医療など複数の戦略的市場における電子部品ソリューションの主導的メーカーとしての敷地を確立しています。イノベーションに関しては80年以上の歴史を持つ TDK は次世材料や多層膜技術、薄膜技術、非土類磁気石などの電子部品に関わるコアテクノロジーに主要な進歩をもたらしてきました。これらすべては日本、ヨーロッパ、アメリカ、中国、アジア諸国などに位置するグローバルな研究開発ネットワークに支援される幅広い研究開発力に基づいています。革新性と製造力を土台にする TDK は2018年度には世界中で働く10億5000人の従業員の努力により約1兆3820億円という売上を記録、健全な収益を達成しました。インドにおける TDK の電子部品ビジネスの主要な部分は、数十年前、シーメンス松下の販売会社を務めていたシーメンスインディアのもとに開始されました。シーメンス松下の株式が公開された1999年、同社は EPCOS インディアとなり、EPCOS AG が形成されました。2008年の TDK 株式会社による EPCOS AG の買収以来、両社はこの分野の主導的プレイヤーとして共に成長してきました。今日、インドにおける TDK 株式会社は、全土にある3つの工場、4カ所の営業所、強力なディーラー網に勤める5000人近くの従業員を有しており、300億ドル、約4億円以上という健全な規模の企業となっています。インドで製造される製品は、この国の現在の需要に最も適したものであり、 幅広い種類の電子部品に応用される携帯電話用充電池、フィルムキャパシター、フェライト自身などを含んでおり、これらはエネルギー、送電、電気の質、産業用、家電用電子製品などにも使用されています。インドで製造される製品は、これら産業の主導的プレイヤーであるインド企業や多国籍企業にも用いられています。TDK がインドで製造するキャパシターとフェライトの 50% 以上は世界中に輸出されています。インド政府が電子製造、メイクインインディア、デジタルガバナンス、インフラ開発、再生可能エネルギー、包摂的成長、その他を含む幅広い優遇策のもと、経済の改革や変革に注力する中、強力で信頼性のあるパートナーである TDK には多くの将来性とある機会が開けています。その中には以下の分野が含まれています。エネルギーの充足、停電のない電気、地方の電化、すべての人のための電気、ソーラーエネルギー、道路、鉄道インフラ、スマートシティ、携帯電話機器製造、自動車産業、テーム計画により推進されている電気自動車などです。以上です。
では、ここから現在と未来と題しまして、州ごとのハイライトをタミルナド州、テランガナ州、ハリヤナ州の3州からご紹介いただきます。はじめに、タミルナド州政府産業上席次官ティルエン・ムルガナンダン様より、タミルナドの電子ハードウェア産業についてご講演いただきます。First, I would like to request Mr. Tiru N. Muruganandam, Principal Secretary, Industries, Government of Tamil Nadu, to give the presentation on electronics and hardware sector in Tamil Nadu.
I would like to convey my regards to my friends from Indian Embassy, MITI, all the companies who are participants here, CEO Invest India, and my friends from Haryana and Telangana, Mr. A.K. Singh and Jayesh Ranjan. This is a short presentation about and what are the advantages Tamil Nadu offers. Firstly, it is the second largest economy in the country, and it's a power surplus state. We have installed capacity of 30 gigawatts. It has got excellent connectivity, to which I'll come about later. It's a highly urbanized state, the most urbanized in the country. Over 50% of the state is urbanized. And another big advantage we have is the presence of 3 submarine cables which land near Chennai. And Chennai has the largest bandwidth, 14.8 TBBS in the country. Coming to electronics and hardware sector in India, Tamil Nadu is an excellent ecosystem for electronics manufacturing. It ranks second in India in computers, electronics, and optical products manufacturing, accounts for almost 16% of the national production. And it is third in terms of electronic exports. Another big advantage is actually Tamil Nadu is a big consumer market in the country. It's a very important player in consumption, and it is one of the largest smartphone markets in the country. If you take all the sectors of electronics and hardware sector like mobile phones, industrial electronics, consumer electronics, electronic components, and computer and peripheral equipment, Tamil Nadu has got very good presence in all the sectors. This is mainly because of 3 factors. One, it is the SaaS capital of the country, software as a service. Then it is Chennai is one of the top 10 automobile hubs in the world. So automobile electronics and the downstream industries is very strong. Similarly, it is also the capital of the country. Therefore, medical electronics is a very important area in Tamil Nadu. Coming to the ecosystem, which I mentioned earlier, we have a very big electronics hub near Chennai in Sriperumbudur, where we have all the big companies, both Japanese companies as well as Chinese companies in electronics. Apple also is manufacturing a part of its production from Sriperumbudur. And in terms of connectivity, I would like to highlight that we have 3 major ports in and around Chennai. So the sea connectivity is excellent, and Chennai has the best logistics. And there is also an international airport in Chennai. And now We are also proposing to develop 4 electronic manufacturing clusters near Chennai. And land availability is plenty. And we have government organizations like SIPCOT and ILCOT, which have readily built land banks. Out of 12 Japanese industrial townships in the country, 3 are in and around Chennai. We have one hub, we have Mahindra, and we have Sojit Motherson. So plenty of well-developed land is available with excellent logistics and connectivity in Tamil Nadu. In terms of exports, I mentioned third in electronics exports, and in 2017-18, we did around 1,270 million USD. One of the great advantages of Tamil Nadu, not only for electronic sector, but for all industries, is its skilled workforce and very harmonious industrial relationships. And we have nearly 576 engineering colleges, 501 polytechnics, and more than 1,000 industrial training institutes and schools. And we have now 5 apex skill training centers in the state for vocational training. As a state, we offer a very attractive package for investors. And like we have investment promotion subsidy in terms of tax refunds. And also we give special capital subsidy. We give training subsidy, we give payroll subsidy, and we give a lot of discounts on land allotment. Almost 50% in land cost is given for southern districts and stamp duty reimbursement. So now we are proposing to have some relocation incentives also for companies which are going to come to Tamil Nadu. Some of the measures which state has taken, I would like to mention. We have Guidance, which is our investment promotion agency, which is one of the oldest investment promotion agencies in the country, similar to Invest India. We have a special desk for Japan in Guidance, and in Guidance actually we provide end-to-end support to all the investors. Right from the day they started expressing interest in to invest till the entire work is completed, Guidance will guide you through the entire process. Then we have an excellent single window system where deemed approvals are given. And there are many Japanese companies which have benefited from this. Yamaha Motors has got very big presence in Tamil Nadu, and following them, Yamaha Music had come, and Yamaha Music got all the clearances in 30 days time. So an excellent single window system we have. Now, following COVID, we are also proposing to have a green channel for all the investments which are going to come into Tamil Nadu. And we have a portal called BizBuddy, which is a grievance redressal portal for industries. Any company which has any problems, then can actually go online and put out their grievance, and the grievance gets scaled up to the Honorable Chief Minister himself in case it is not settled within the specified time. One of the reasons for excellent infrastructure and logistics in Chennai and in Tamil Nadu is JICA. So we are very grateful to JICA, which has invested heavily in Tamil Nadu in infrastructure, particularly the Chennai Metro and all the desalination plants in and around Chennai. They are all funded by JICA. Coming to the other infrastructure which is available and our relationship with Japanese companies, Tamil Nadu is home to around 620 Japanese companies. The second largest number of Japanese companies operating in India is in Tamil Nadu, and we are one of the largest Japanese expat community in Chennai, in and around Chennai. We have a direct flight from Japan, from Tokyo to Chennai, all Nippon Airlines. And as I mentioned earlier, there are 3 Japan industrial townships in and around Chennai. One thing which I would like to highlight is we have a regular institutional mechanism to resolve any issues relating to Japanese companies. We have something called a joint working committee, which meets very regularly. And JETRO, representative from JCIC, and various other business associations of Japanese companies, they are members in this committee. And this committee is very active, and they give a lot of suggestions about the infrastructure, and all the issues are resolved in a very harmonious manner through this committee. Now our Honorable Chief Minister has actually constituted a high-power investment special task force to promote investments into Tamil Nadu, in which again JETRO and many of the Japanese companies are members. So briefly, this is my presentation about Tamil Nadu. I welcome all the Japanese companies to invest in Tamil Nadu, and I can assure you that we will support you from the beginning to the end. We are with you. Thank you.
ミルナドゥ州政府産業担当首席次官ティル・エヌ・ムルガナンダム氏によるプレゼンテーションのサマリーを申し上げます。タミルナドゥ州はインドの州の中で第2位の経済規模を持ち、その戦略的な位置、適切な環境、先端的なインフラ、積極的なガバナンス、好ましいエコシステムから最も求められている投資先となっています。タミルナドゥは620以上の日本企業が拠点を置いており、インドで創業する日本企業が2番目に多い州です。また、インドで最大の日本人駐在員コミュニティがあります。タミルナドゥ州は電子、ハードウェア制度に関しては、インドの州で第2位であり、これから第1位になる可能性があります。また、同州には高い技能を備えた潤沢な労働力に恵まれています。さらに、スマートフォンキャピタルやヘルスキャピタルとも呼ばれ、関連産業が集積しています。タミルナドゥ州の2017年での電子製品輸出は2億7060万 US ドルでした。タミルナドゥ州は自動車エレクトロニクス、携帯電話、コンピューターハードウェア、産業戦略分野のエレクトロニクスなどの過量産業の巨大な市場となっています。また同州にはデルやフレクトロニクス、サムソン、フォックスナコン、デルタ、パナソニック、ノキア、サルコンプ、BYD、モートローラを含む多くの主要な電子製品メーカーの拠点となっております。州政府は地域で最良の優遇策と支援制度を提供しています。また新型コロナウイルス影響を受けて製造拠点の移転を計画している国々の投資家誘致を目的とした特別投資促進タスクフォースも提供しています。タミルナドゥは航空、海運インフラ、備え、高い接続性があります。州内には6つの空港と22の港があります。また年間100万人の技能を持った新卒学生が輩出されるため、豊富な労働力も魅力です。タミルナドゥ州内には800校以上の電子工学大学があります。また同州は投資促進機関で一本化された窓口であるガイダンスには日本からの投資サポートを行うジャパンデスクがあります。このように同州では様々な投資優遇策を導入し、また受け入れ体制の強化に取り組んでおります。日本企業の皆様の投資をお待ちしております。以上です。
続きまして、テランガナ州政府産業商業上席次官ジャエス・ランジャン様より、エレクトロニクスの標準スキルベース能力開発についてご講演いただきます。Next, I would like to request Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, Principal Secretary, Industries and Commerce, Government of Telangana, to give the presentation.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from Hyderabad. My name is Jayesh Ranjan. I work for the government of Telangana. I look after the twin portfolios of information technology and industries. Telangana is a centrally located province in India, and in the last 5 years has been recognized as one of the most progressive states, one of the most business-friendly states. In fact, after our Prime Minister started the national flagship program called Make in India, he asked the states to reform because unless business-friendly conditions are created in the states, Make in India will only remain a slogan. No one will be interested to invest. And I'm very proud and very happy to share with you that the state which reformed the most is the state of Telangana. In fact, Mr. Bagla earlier spoke about the seamless way in which approvals and permissions are accorded in the states. We are the leaders in that. We are the leaders in ease of doing business. And I would like to share one additional feature. In fact, Telangana is the only state where you do not require any approval, any permission to start the construction of your factory. So if a Japanese company wants to invest in Telangana and has identified the land parcel in one of our industrial parks, you can start the factory construction right on day one without waiting for any permission or approval. So there are many such path-breaking reforms that we have developed here in Telangana. And I'm very happy to share with you that in the last 5 years, in India, we use a term called conversion ratio. How many investments were announced and how many actually materialized on ground. And I'm again very proud to share with you that one of the best conversion ratios in the country, over 80%, has been achieved in Telangana. which goes on to show that what we promise is actually delivered on the ground. Another very important indicator is that many of the companies who have invested in Telangana have continued to invest further. There are companies which have invested one time, invested the second time, invested the third time, and so on and so forth. And this includes international companies, domestic companies, which obviously shows that they find the going to be very, very good in Telangana. And that is the reason they want to continue and remain invested here. There are 14 priority areas for us, and electronics is one of the most important areas. And I would like to share through this slide what are the competitive advantages of Telangana. One is that Telangana and our capital city of Hyderabad, these are historic manufacturing hubs. In fact, some of the largest defense manufacturing industries, both in the government sector and in the private sector, are located here for the last 5 decades. So there is a huge ecosystem of defense electronics. Over a period of time, consumer electronics, mobile electronics. Hyderabad is also the healthcare, pharmaceutical and life sciences and biotechnology capital of the world. In fact, you'll be amazed to know that 1/3 of global vaccines are manufactured here in Hyderabad. And over a period of time, lots of R&D, lots of medical electronics has also got established here. In fact, the labor costs in Hyderabad, in Telangana, are amongst the lowest in the entire Asian and Southeast Asian region. If you look at this slide, which is appearing on the bottom right portion, you will see that we are extremely cost competitive, and we have capacity to provide the best quality skilling. In fact, we have a government institution called TASK, the Telangana Academy for Skills and Knowledge. And in fact, this is something which people appreciate a lot about Telangana. If you require ready to deploy workforce, the government takes it upon ourselves to train these people completely at our cost and make it available to the companies. So if a Japanese company has to invest in Telangana, and if they tell us that I'll be recruiting 500 people, I will train 2,000 people at my cost. You don't have to pay even 1 yen for that, and you select the best 500 out of them. So this is a guarantee which the government provides. We also have a very attractive package of industries, and in fact, some of the incentives that we give are very similar to what you learned about in Tamil Nadu, what you'll hear in Haryana. But there are 2 special incentives that we provide. One is that we provide transportation subsidy. So Telangana is a landlocked state, but that has not prevented companies who still have to do with lots of imports to set shop in our state. And they do that using this transportation subsidy. So whatever is the transport cost that you incur to bring your stuff from the nearest port to the factory, we subsidize that. And we also have a dormitory policy. 20% of the land can be utilized for dormitories. But the best point which I want to share with you is that we have a flexibility in our policy which says that we can meet or beat the best offer that you get from anywhere in the country. So if my Tamil Nadu counterpart or my Haryana counterpart tells you that these are the incentives they will offer, I can just close my eyes and sign on the dotted line, matching that or even improving that. That is how flexible our industrial policy is. And lots of electronic manufacturing companies have benefited from this policy. In fact, we have $462 million worth of electronics manufacturing happening in the state last year, which accounted for about 7% of the state's industrial gross value added. In this slide, you can see what is the span of our electronics ecosystem. Some of the leading American companies, European companies, Taiwanese companies, Japanese companies, and of course, homegrown companies. They are all present in our state. Panasonic is the latest addition. They, through a third-party vendor, have started assembling LEDs in Hyderabad, and they are very happy at the way the business has grown. They want to do more and more. Besides them, there are 67 Japanese companies. Unlike Tamil Nadu or maybe Haryana, This was not a place where traditionally large number of Japanese companies had moved, but of late, as I said, in the last 5 years, Japanese companies have also realized the value, the worth of doing business in Telangana, and we are seeing a lot of interest. In fact, in the last 3 years, we have made 3 trips to Tokyo. We have a very active partnership with JETRO, with JICA. JETRO has actually come to, their teams have come to Telangana, and they have scouted for land where a dedicated industrial park for Japanese industries can be set up, and we are continuing our partnership with them. We actually have a representative in Japan. Apart from the support that we get from the Indian embassy in Tokyo, Telangana government officially has a representative in Tokyo. And those of you who want to interact at the first level, he's a citizen of Telangana, but has been living in Tokyo for the last 25 years. And he's our representative. He has a small office also. So lots of initial information about investment promotion can be obtained from him. And of course, we are always available for interactions. We have close to 1,000 acres of industrial park exclusively dedicated to electronic manufacturing. This is the biggest in the country. And the amazing thing is that this 1,000 acres are located right next to our airport. So my counterpart in Tamil Nadu, for example, mentioned that their electronics part is located in Sri Perumbudur. My guess is that it is at least 100 plus kilometers or maybe 200 kilometers from Chennai. But this particular industrial park in Telangana is located right next to the airport. Hyderabad, for those of you who are not aware, has been consistently rated as the most livable city in India. So imagine your factory is in the city, all your senior management, your workers can live in the most livable city in the country, and they can enjoy the nice social infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and the good ambience that an urban living provides. We can see that in the last 5 years, investment in our electronics industry have grown manyfold from about $114 million in 2016. It has grown to $900 million in the last 5 years, and our target is to make it grow 10 times more in the coming 7-8 years. So we'll be very willing to interact with you further. Please do your own due diligence. If you think that any other state is giving a better value proposition than Telangana, you are most welcome to go there. But do evaluate what we have to offer. And I can assure you that we will rate very, very highly in your evaluation, in your due diligence. I'm very glad that you have decided to interact with the states directly. States is where the action really is. But nevertheless, I'm very happy to work along with our Ministry of Information Technology, with Invest India, in welcoming all of you to our country and to my province of Telangana. Thank you very much.
テランガナ州政府商工業担当首席次官ジャイシュ・ランジャン氏によるプレゼンテーションのサマリーをお届けいたします。テランガナ州はインド中央部に位置する州で今後の躍進が期待されております。今後5年間で30万の新規雇用創出を目指し、電子関連の研究開発、製造の整備されたエコシステムを創造するため、積極的かつ包括的な戦略を推進しています。また、地元州民の採用支援に向け、州政府では研修費用を州で支払うことで技能開発を進めています。州内にはテランガナ技能知識学校 TASK が開設されており、ESDM の訓練において第1位と評価されています。州内には技術系学校も多数存在し、テランガナ州では毎年10万人が技術系学生となり、毎年3万5千人の卒業生が電子産業に吸収されています。テランガナにはすでに数多くの電子製造拠点が設立され創業しています。主要企業としてはスカイワース、マイクロマックス、東芝などが挙げられ、つい最近ではパナソニックも拠点を設けています。州政府は電子製造業での30万以上の雇用創出と100億ドルの投資融資を目指しています。テランガナ州政府は現在、インドで最も優れた優遇策と補助金制度を提供しており、また約束を遵守することを保証しています。私たちは電子製造業の参入を奨励しているだけではなく、プラスチック、精密工学、部品、 機器製造などの関連産業にも優遇策を提供しています。以上です。
続きまして、ハリヤナ州政府産業上席次官 AK シン様より、理想の投資先ハリヤナ州と題しましてご講演いただきます。Next, I would like to request Mr. AK Singh, Principal Secretary, Industries Government of Haryana, to give the presentation on Haryana, an investment destination of choice.
Good afternoon, everybody. Some mic is on, I think. I would request. TV ka mic. I would first of all introduce you to the Principal Secretary IT, the State of Haryana, Mr. Ankur Gupta. Mr. Yogendra Chaudhary, Principal Secretary, International Cooperation and Foreign Department. He's also here. I will make the state involved in getting investments in IT and electronics is present here. I welcome all the participants at Tokyo. As you would see, start the presentation. Mic, speaker. I thank you for allowing me to have the last word out of the 3 states. Haryana needs no introduction to Japan, and Japan needs no introduction to. This is the heart of the country, close to more than 11% of the country's market, 12.5% of the population. The state, 2/3 of it. We'll just start the presentation. Can you see it now, the first page?
Actually, we cannot see the presentation. And the voice is also not so clear.
Yes, bear with us.
So you may start speaking. And
okay. Yeah. If you, as I said, Japan needs introduction to Haryana, and Haryana needs no introduction to Japan.
Just a second. I think if more than one devices are connected, then please switch off the other devices so that there is no echo sound.
There is one which has the camera, and the other one, yeah. Now, Haryana is uniquely positioned. We concede that Telangana is number 1 in ease of doing business. Haryana is number 3. It has risen from 14. I would say just one thing. The unique space that Haryana has in the consciousness of every investor all over the globe is because it is very close to the national capital region. We are crisscrossed by national highways, both the dedicated freight corridors, which are dedicated to freight movement by rail, are passing through the state. We are the only state which has 2 8-lane expressways emanating from Delhi, crisscrossing the state to the north till Panipat, 8-lane, and towards Jaipur, which is in the process of getting 8-lane, but nearly till Manesar, it is already 8-lane. The road and rail network, the ring road around Delhi, passes, 2/3 of it passes through the state. 2/3 of the ring road passes through the state. You can see the red ring. We are the first state to have a rail development corporation, and we have already proposed to the NCR Planning Board an orbital rail corridor, nearly 120 kilometers all along this red red portion of the ring road that you see within the state to the west of Delhi. It's a 5,000 crore project. 730 crores from NCRPB has been tied up. Rest will be financed appropriately. The only state which has launched the Rail Development Corporation is a 50-50 partnership between the central government and the state government. Next. We have 34 industrial estates spread over 22 districts. We have ready plug and play more than 1,000 plots of various sizes, whether you want 500 square meters or you want few acres, 5, 10, 20. We also have greenfield project. We are proposing the electronic and medical devices hub, basically right next to Gurugram, 40 kilometers south of Delhi in Sona, where we have more than 1,500 acres of land, that is 600 hectares. You can have greenfield raw land, or you can take developed land with all the provision for sewer, water, roads, electricity, etc. We are a power surplus state. Our tariffs are quite competitive. 24 hours power is assured to all industry in the NCR and rest of the state. As I said, we have been the destination of choice for the Japanese companies, and the reason is twofold: the ease of operation, the friendly bureaucracy. Instead of red tape, we have the red carpet. 27% of Japanese companies, more than a quarter, which have come to India are our state. We are happy to host them. More than 12% of the business, that is 1 out of 8, is within the state. The reason is twofold. As I said, the ease of setting up base and operation and starting work, and access to the entire country's market through a beautiful network of road, rail, and air. Social infrastructure. The Japanese school operated by the government and the Japanese embassy is very close by. There is two schools in Gurugram which offer international Japanese instruction, Lancers Convent. We have 3 Japanese managed hotels which have been taken on lease by your entrepreneurs and to give a wholesome environment. We have maybe for a district the highest number of golf courses for we want you to work 8 hours in a day, but the rest 16 we want you to spend a very, very hospitable and homely environment. There are multiple Japanese restaurants managed by Japanese expats, providing Japanese cuisine, condiments, Japanese food in the areas that we are talking of, Pawal, Rewari, and Gurugram. So, as regards the offer that we make, we say we are not saying anything. We are very flexible. You give us the wish list things that you want, things you are looking for, and I promise that the state will not only meet, it will maybe exceed them. And we are a very, very non-discriminatory state. The Telangana and Tamil Nadu engineers, which are first rate, are welcome to work here once the Japanese set up their base within our state. We will welcome them also with open arms. The ecosystem for skilled labor is tremendous. We have an Indian Institute of Management in Rohtak. We have IIT Delhi close by. We have multiple engineering and technical institutions. We have, to my last count, 3 Japanese language training institutes or schools within Gurugram, and I think 1 in Faridabad. So the entire ecosystem, and I would quote an ex-Japanese official in JETRO saying that Gurugram, Manesar, Bawal, the ecosystem in these 2-3 districts and industrial estates is like second home for the Japanese in India. So we don't have to, yes, I don't have a port. We are landlocked state. Maybe Tamil Nadu offers 2 ports, but we offer 9 inland container depots and freight stations and 2 dedicated freight corridors which pass through the state to Calcutta and pass through to the west to Gujarat and Bombay port. the policies, if you want, it's already there in the, but as I said, we'll go ahead. The state cabinet, the state council of ministers is always there to supersede any policy and meet whatever expectations future entrepreneur willing to set up base in the state as asks for. What is given is what is in the public domain. But anything beyond this, the state cabinet, the council of ministers is ready to convene a meeting and approve beyond the scope of the stated and declared policy. We would expect a little closer interaction during the question and answer session, and I hope everything is clear. But anything else that the people present there in the audience listening to the webinar, the video conference, we are most welcome to answer. Three of us are here, and MD HSIDC, the State Industrial Development Corporation, has also joined in. Anurag Agarwal. Thank you very much.
州政府産業担当主席次官 AK 審様によるプレゼンテーションのサマリーをお届けいたします。インド北部に位置するハリヤーナ州は州面積の3分の2以上がデリー首都圏に含まれている州です。ハリヤーナ州にはマルチ・スズキが1980年代に製造拠点を開設したことから、日本とは長きにわたり緊密な関係を維持しています。ハリヤーナ州はビジネスのしやすさランキング最新版でインド国内で3位に選出されています。また産業インフラも優れています。ハリヤーナ州はデリー分配産業回廊やアムリットサル、コルカタ産業回廊など複数の主要産業回廊の一部が通過しており、市場や港へのアクセスが良好です。また州内34カ所に合計1100件のプラグ&プレイ設備を備えた産業団地を開設しています。現在面積1500エーカーの IMT ソフナと3000エーカーのカルホダロ開発が進んでおり、新たに4000区画が追加される予定です。政策といたしましては、2017年に IT 産業及び ESDM 政策が導入されております。この政策では投資家向け財政優遇策を示しています。例えば CGST や印紙税の全額償還や電気税の免除のほか、IT、ESDM 施設開発向けに最大1億ルピーまでの開発補助金を、また IT タウンシップ開発事業者向けに2500万ルピーを上限に FCI の 50% に当たる金額を補助金として拠出するなどし、投地融資を進めています。また2017年には企業及びスタートアップ政策を導入しております。人材開発にも力を入れており、ハリヤーナ州内にはインド工科大学など世界的に知られた経営系及び技術系教育機関が多数存在しています。また、いわゆる専門技術大学を国内で初めて開設したのもハリヤーナ州です。社会インフラにつきましては、周囲を塀で囲まれ、すぐに入居可能な高級住宅地や日系企業が経営するホテルやゲストハウスなどが整備されております。また、世界基準の教育も提供されており、ニューデリーの日本人学校のほか、市内の複数の学校でインターナショナルバカロレアや IGCSE 教育を行っています。医療制度も整っておりまして、近代的かつ最高峰の医療インフラ、さらに総合病院や専門病院が発達しており、メダンタと呼ばれる救急輸送機が運用されています。日本人経営の日本食レストランや日本の食材を扱う商店などが複数市の中心部にあります。また、大型ショッピングモールやゴルフコースといった娯楽施設のほか、世界遺産などの観光地にも近接するグルグラムは、日本人駐在員やその家族にとって理想的な駐在地となっております。皆様の投資をお待ちしております。以上です。
時間が大幅に押しておりますが、最後の講演となります。パナソニックインディア CEO、マニッシュ・シャルマ様より、パナソニック社の経験についてご講演いただきます。This is the last presentation. I would like to request Ms. Manish Sharma, President and CEO, Panasonic India, to give the presentation on Panasonic's experience.
Thank you so much. And my name is Manish Sharma. I am the CEO of Panasonic India, and I'm going to make a presentation to reflect our experience and also why India itself, not only for Panasonic, but for Japanese companies at large. Before I start my presentation, I just wanted to reflect upon the presentations made by three principal secretaries. And thank you all for mentioning Panasonic in your presentations. So first one is Tamil Nadu. I just wanted to share with everyone that our plant in Tamil Nadu has been there since 1971. And this is the first factory which Panasonic established when they enter into the country. And one of the highlights which I want to really mention here is that this factory is the first factory of Panasonic not only to the US or to many countries into Europe, but also back to Japan. So this is a matter of pride for us here in Panasonic. Second is Jayesh sir, thank you so much for mentioning. So we recently started our production for televisions through a third party facility in your state. And our experience is really fantastic, especially during current times. We could really get big support from your government to restart the operations for this facility. So extremely thankful to you. And needless to say that our headquarter happens to be in the state of Haryana. And our facility, which we call Techno Park, this is a 76-acre facility. And our intention to set up this factory where we have 5 different products getting manufactured is to not only service the requirement and the demand of India, but also to export. And I'm very happy to share that we have already started export to a lot of Middle East and African and also South Asian countries. So thank you so much for making the presentations, and extremely thankful to all of you. The contents of my presentation will cover Panasonic India's journey, the advantage which this country provides to a lot of Japanese companies. And third is, I think Saurabh sir already aspects of how India is now accelerating on enabling the policy regime, and finally the conclusion of my presentation. This slide is a reflection of the journey of Panasonic India. Even though, as I said, Panasonic in India has been present since 1971. However, after the FDI norms were relaxed, various facilities in India. And this journey which I have highlighted is specifically since 2008, when this entity Panasonic India was formed. So in the first few years, our intention was to re-establish the brand. As we all know, India is a young country, and consumer products being into forefront, we wanted to really position Panasonic India as a brand for the youth. The second phase was, how do you improve on the efficiency, optimization into supply chain, establish facilities, factories, warehouses, and all other capabilities. So for all my viewers from Japan, I want to highlight 3 very important pillars which have become the reason for sustainability for Panasonic in India. These 3 pillars are, first is localization. And localization does not mean only localization of people or facilities, but the very thought process. How do we localize the business models, the product required? How do we customize them for being suitable for this country? Second is harmonization. Needless to say, India and Japan share a very deep bond. The cultures of both these countries are very similar. And my personal experience is that the harmonization between Indians and Japanese is far more better than any other nationalities. The third one, which is most important, is rich communication. And I think we have paid a lot of emphasis on internal and external communications, and that becomes the very basis of mutual understanding. And the final phase, which is going on right now, is how do we prepare for future? So Panasonic India is building its digital capabilities, and we have recently set innovation center in Bangalore. For my how you know Panasonic in Japan. So in Japan, the consumer appliances business would be roughly about 28 or 29% of total revenues, and the remaining business is about B2B businesses. In India, it is completely other way around. Still, consumer appliances are almost half of our total business. And this is one big opportunity for Panasonic in India. So now we are paying a lot of focus on building in devices business. Life Solutions is a very big brand which Panasonic acquired in this country called Anchor Electricals, and we are building further capabilities into this. Automotive happens to be a very large business for us, And finally, I think in line with when industries will start to expand, when manufacturing will start to expand in this country, industrial solutions, devices, smart factory solutions, those businesses will have a very large potential for Panasonic and for a lot of Japanese companies. This is an important slide. Panasonic Corporation's management has a lot of trust, and their expectation from India is not only to consider India as a market or as an opportunity, but also as a capability. And therefore, our intention from India is fundamentally of three kinds. First one is to create factories into India and especially look towards West for exports, which is Middle East, Africa, and now the United States. And second is to utilize India's knowledge hub. So for audit functions, for IT related services, we use India as a capability. And final is to create shared platforms out of India for IT services, infrastructure related services. And we have recently set up an India Innovation Center, as I mentioned, to create innovation out of India for the world. This slide, so the till previous slide, the information was about Panasonic. Though the previous speakers have already reflected that how India is such a large opportunity, especially now with a very strong intention and will and policies which are coming up. I'll quickly reflect the first one is needless to say, India is going to grow on scale. And I think it is going to happen from now onwards. And second is various electronic verticals, whether it is consumer electronics and backward integration of consumer electronics, which is component manufacturing, is going to happen from now onwards. And the policy regime is extremely favorable for that. Second is electronic components for variety of industries, including power electronics, industrial devices, telecom, and LED lighting for various requirements, whether it is home or the infrastructure is going to really expand. Today, one of the facilities into India happens to be one amongst top 5 in the world when it comes to scale of LED lights. And finally, I think mobile ecosystem, we have already proven ourselves that how we are progressing in that direction. So this slide again, Saurabh Gaur sir has already reflected. I'll not touch upon, but the reason I put this slide is to reflect how the approach of central government together with the fantastic cooperation coming in from various states. India is now ready to bring in investment and to facilitate any kind of support which is needed by Japanese companies. This is my personal, I believe, intention and also my responsibility. So I'm personally involved communication. So I chair FICCI's Electronics Committee, and I've been involving into various communications which are continuing to happen with Japan. And this is my last slide. Some of the pictures I leave you with. This is a reflection of my global CEO. Since last 6 years, he happened to visit India 9 times. So it is almost 1.5 times every year. And he has been meeting the leadership of the country, and he has been also engaging with the policymakers and also with the industry counterparts. So that's all about my presentation, and I'll be open for any questions.
パナソニックインディア社のマジシュ社長によるプレゼンテーションのサマリーを申し上げます。パナソニックは100年の歴史を持ちます。2008年にインドに進出、実りの多い事業を続けてまいりました。この度における重要な分野を紹介いたします。プレゼンテーションのフェーズ1では成長と拡大、フェーズ2では効率性と最適化の実現、フェーズ3では変革が強調され、長年にわたる活動からの学びや体験が共有されました。パナソニックはインドで5つの主要ビジネス分野への多角化を5つの主要テーマを持って実行しています。その主要ビジネス分野とは、電化製品、コネクテッドソリューション、産業ソリューション、ライフソリューション、自動車ソリューションの5つです。パナソニックはインドで大きく飛躍しており、シナジーやインテグレーションに基づくソリューションを消費者、企業、コミュニティに提供することを目指しています。2014年、パナソニックインディア社は、インド、南アジア、中東、アフリカのいわゆるイサミア地域の事業本部としての役割を担うようになっております。新興市場での成長を促進し、新興市場へより深く参入するという目標を担っています。また弊社は地域の輸出、研究開発、知識の拠点としての活動をしており、インド国内で約1万8000人を雇用する15カ所の製造拠点を持って、その存在を拡大しつつあります。 積極的な政策と事業を可能にするプラットフォームを整えたインドは、パナソニックにとって豊富な機会を与えてくれる場所となっています。インド政府電子情報技術省のコラボレーション志向のアプローチは、産業間に相互交流とアイデアの共有の機会をもたらしています。インド商工会議所連合会、フィッキーのエレクトロニクス製造委員会会長として、皆様のご支援にお礼を申し上げ、また今後のご指導をお願い申し上げます。以上です。
ご登壇者の皆様、ビデオをオンにしていただけますでしょうか。So now, I request all the panelists to switch on their video, please. 質疑応答の時間ではございますが、時間が大幅に押しているため、いただいたご質問に関しましては、個別に登壇者より回答させていただきました。So as we are short of the time, all the questions received by the participants have been answered from panelists directly. では、最後に、インド政府電子情報技術省サイエンティスト、アティフ・カン様より閉会のご挨拶をいただきたく存じます。Finally, I would like to request Mr. Atif Khan, Scientist, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, to sum up them and give the vote of thanks. Mr. Atif Khan. Mr. Atif Khan, Scientist, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
good afternoon. It is my great pleasure to propose a vote of thanks to all the dignitaries who have made it convenient to attend this webinar organized by Embassy of India in Japan in association with Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India, and also Invest India. We are deeply grateful to Madam Mona Kandar Ma'am, Minister Economic and Commerce, Embassy of India in Tokyo, for the initiative taken in holding this meeting. I also take this opportunity to express our sincere thanks to Ms. Shivabara, PDG METI, and Mr. Nakajo, ex-VP JETCO, for gracing this occasion and giving insightful addresses. I must express my deep gratitude to Mr. Deepak Bagla, MD and CEO Invest India, for making an excellent presentation on improved FDI ecosystem and facilitation in India. It was pleasing to know how Invest India has been handling foreign firms to make inroads in the Indian manufacturing landscape. We have also listened to the insightful and thought-provoking presentations by Principal Secretary Industries, Government of Tamil Nadu, Mr. Muruganandam, Principal Secretary IT and Industries, Government of Telangana, Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, and Principal Secretary Industries and Commerce, Government of Haryana, Mr. A.K. Singh. We greatly value your contributions in improving the infrastructure and ease of doing business in your respective states, and also for sharing your preparedness and strategy to facilitate setting up of large-scale electronics manufacturing. It was pleasing to know how India's plug-and-play infrastructure for the sector, skill base, and capacity building in electronics. I also thank Principal Secretary Industries, Government of Gujarat, Mr. M.K. Das, and Ms. Neelam Rani, MD Index B, for attending this webinar. Sir, we will conduct a separate state-specific webinar soon, and we look forward to hear from you then. I also express my sincere thanks to Mr. N. Balakrishnan from PDK and Mr. Manish Sharma from Panasonic for sharing with us their journey and experience in the Indian market. Sir, your feedbacks and appreciation encourages us to strive harder in our endeavors. My thanks are due to my senior colleague, Mr. Saurabh Goar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and IT, who have worked with great dedication to make this program a success. Last but not the least, I thank all the representatives of the companies who have taken out time from the busy schedule and attended this webinar. I hope you found this session informative. We would be very happy to take any individual queries you might have. I would welcome all of you to visit India and consider starting or expanding your business here. See you here in India soon. Thank you.
大使館電子情報技術省インベストメントインディア共催によるウェビナーにご参加いただいた皆様と感謝決議を行うことを光栄にも存じます。このセミナーを主導されたモナカ・アンダール経済担当講師に深く感謝申し上げます。またこの機会にこのセミナーにご参加くださりご講演いただきました経済産業省の柏原様、テトロ中条理事に心から御礼申し上げます。インドの改善された FDI エコシステムと FDI 促進について素晴らしいプレゼンテーションをしてくださったインベストインディアのディーパック・パグラ氏にも深い感謝を表明いたします。インベストインディアがインドの製造業に参入しようとする外国企業をどのように支援しているかを知ることができ、嬉しく思います。また、タミルナド政府のムルガン・ナンダム産業担当主席次官、テラガナ州政府のジャイエシュ・ランジャン IT 産業担当主席次官、ハリアン州政府の AK シン産業商業担当主席次官も深い洞察に基づく素晴らしいプレゼンテーションをしてくださいました。皆様がそれぞれの州のインフラ改善とビジネスのしやすさの向上に貢献されていることを高く評価します。また、大規模なエレクトロニクス製造拠点を構築しようという州政府の意思と戦略を共有してくださったことに感謝いたします。インドの電子部門におけるすぐ操業可能な製造インフラ、技能基盤、技能開発について知ることができ、嬉しく思いました。また、セミナーにご参加くださったグジャラート州政府の MK ダス産業担当主席次官とインデックスのミーラム・ラニさんにもお礼を申し上げます。近日中に開催される予定のグジャラート州に関する別個のオンラインセミナーを楽しみにしています。また、インド市場における旅と経験について共有してくださった TDK のバラ・クリシュナーさんとマニッシュ・シャルマさんにも御礼申し上げます。2人のフィードバックと感謝の表明は、私たちの投資促進活動にとっての励みになります。このセミナーを成功させるために多大な貢献をしてくださった私の先輩である電子情報技術省のソーラブ・ガウル局長に御礼申し上げます。最後にご多忙にもかかわらず、このオンラインセミナーにご参加くださった企業代表の皆様に心より御礼申し上げます。このセミナーが皆様にとって有用であったことを願っております。皆様からのお問い合わせを心からお待ちしております。また、ぜひインドをご訪問いただき、事業の開始、または拡大をご検討いただければと思います。どうぞインドにお越しください。お待ちしております。以上です。
以上をもちまして、本日のウェブセミナーは終了とさせていただきます。長時間にわたりお付き合いいただきまして、誠にありがとうございます。なお、この後、17時30分まで、ほんのわずかな時間ではございますが、ネットワーキングの時間を設けております。チャット機能を利用して、登壇者や参加者に直接チャットメッセージを送信して、交流の場としてご活用くださいませ。Thank you very much for the participation. Now we have a networking session until 17:30. So the participants can send the chat message to the panelists or other participants through the chat function. Thank you very much. ありがとうございました。以上にてネットワーキングセッションを終了いたします。This is the end of the networking session. Thank you very much.